In this episode, I had a great time speaking to CernS4, who is one of the keystone figures in the Upland Discord and Facebook communities. During his 18-month journey in Upland, he's been highly engaged in all of the ups and downs, including the celebrations and the face palms, and he's developed quite the knack for ingesting and digesting many of the wider Upland community's thoughts, concerns, and opinions about various topics and events. And he's been able to put this into very constructive and extensive official feedback submissions. We discussed all of that today, of course, and a whole lot more. The sky and the land might not actually be the limit if, like CERN S4, you can take on a big picture perspective of the metaverse and beyond.
Warning, the information and opinions within are solely the views of the individuals involved, contains content not suitable for anyone.
All right, thank you for listening to or watching this latest episode of the Upland Metaverse and Beyond. Today we've got CERN S4, aka, what did you say, good old Bob?
Greetings, Bob, indeed.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen one of these before, this is a series where I like to dive into and get to know some of the people behind the Upland Metaverse or, Web3 spaces in a bit more details. I reached out to CNS, when was it, earlier in the week, saying, do you want to have a chat? Because you're one of those people that I just see everywhere. You're engaged in everything.
Well, I try to be a little bit of a jack of all trades. One thing I found is you can't keep to just one thing in the metaverse. This takes you sideways and upside down and all around, and you got to make it your own and your home. So that's kind of the spice of life, so to speak, in Upland. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, there's a lot to get into, of course. But before we start getting into all that sort of stuff, is there anything you want to share about, who you are, where you're based, or what your interests are, maybe outside of Upland and the metaverse?
Sure. Well, maybe just to start with a full disclosure of what I'm not. So those who were watching and see me for the first time, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not Bill Murray, as opposed to all the GIFs that some may see on Discord.
The GIF King, yes.
We got that out in the open already. And then as far as Bob, we'll just call that my Upland only name, so to speak.
Sounds good.
It's fun to have a different persona and a different kind of your own character that you can make in Upland, just like our avatars. I think there's something to be said about that, something you can't necessarily always have or attain in the real world, so to speak. So, that keeps things interesting, even in the real world, to have a second ability to be, someone else, so to speak. And I think that's one theme that I would get to also in just Upland and the metaverse in itself is, kind of having fun and having sort of a comic relief, so to speak, is really important, I think, because you can get so hung up on your investments and taking this seriously, and then you see Upland do something sideways, and you're realizing, okay, well, it's not as linear as I thought, and then it's like, well, enjoy the ride. So that's really what I've come to experience in Upland these days.
Nice. So do you think like your metaverse persona and your in real life persona, are they complementary or are they contrasting?
Well, so I manage businesses. I'm a family man. I'm very busy. They're similar, but I have sometimes a quirky sense of humor. I think if that's good or bad. But I also think in Upland there's a way to not worry about as much the perception as much as just laying it out there and just being who you are, and so they're complementary, but obviously, you know, there's certain processes in real life that you can't quite translate to Upland the way it would be complex to delve into all that, but
Yeah, absolutely. And
uh,
you seem to be somebody who's always active outside of, say, the normal PT time zone.
mhm.
Is this something that you're doing in like your downtime, or when and where are you investing your time in Upland?
Sure. So, um, I don't have a 9 to 5 job.
Yep.
So, um, whenever I'm bored or whenever I'm excited or what have you, I'll log in, and if I can think of a fun little comment to make to brighten folks' days, then great. If there's something ticking me, then okay, let's bring it on. If there's something others are talking about, chatting about, it's interesting because it's also, it's both the investment piece. Obviously, we want everyone wants to see Upland rise and shine and beyond, and then there's also, sort of how do you make fun of, enjoy what you're doing while you're at it. Um, you know, so I'll be on, family and business takes on a 24/7 life of its own. So,
Yep.
whenever I'm down, sometimes I'll be, even 4 o'clock in the morning, so, I might, sometimes I'll take like 2, 3 hour naps, and I still feel like there's that back in the day in Upland, there used to be, I don't know if you know of any folks who are still doing this, but there used to be players in Spark Week who would set their alarm clocks for every like
Yep.
2, 3 hours to make sure that they grabbed as many spark chests as possible. Well, I
Yep.
do that every day, even when it's not Spark
Oh,
Week.
really? Wow. Yeah, that was Brabant, Swiss, and Bocchio, and those guys. They were doing that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, so you're definitely dedicated. What about interests that are outside the metaverse?
So oh boy, business, strategy. I love chess.
Mm.
I'm big on chess. Obviously, being with my family, my kids, that's a big one. Uh, I I have a fascination with, uh, just trying new things, experiences. Um, I'm a little bit of a foodie, not too deep into it, but oh, and another, get to know me feature I can share is, so the go-kart sushi, my little
Yes.
tagline. That is not a foodie item. That's a tagline to kind of roll along with the whole theme that I just mentioned. Just, so I don't own a go-kart, and I do have sushi sporadically, but what it's meant is like, let's say Upland does something interesting. Oh, there's a go kart for you. If they do something that's not the way you want it, you got sush. You get a little bit of
Yes.
everything. So here's some go kart sushi. Doesn't make any sense, but it's some random utility somewhere, some way.
Yes. Well, I certainly wouldn't be in a hurry to buy some sushi off a go kart. So yeah, off a go kart vendor. So yeah, well, that might be a good segue then into how you got involved with Upland. Like you said, you're interested in checking out new things and whatnot. Now, I had a bit of a snoop around before, and your first, well, at least when you became a an Uplander was April 13th, 2022. So you've just celebrated your 18-month anniversary, pretty much. So what was it? What
I'm
was the
officially an adult in months.
so what was your journey in? How did you find out about it and all that sort of stuff?
Sure. So I believe I got brave enough to venture in through Brave,
Mm,
some kind of advertisement. I got into a little bit of just a little bit, a hair into the crypto space, and kept seeing ads for Upland. Also was in Wombat, the
mm.
Wombat One Play, where Upland has done some ads as well, and thought it'd be interesting to try a metaverse as well. And I like the whole, of course, as many. focusing to the whole real world slash metaverse concept. So I got in and started to really get just sort of an odd fascination with collecting properties, putting the login, and happily earning like 0.01 spark every week or two at a time, until it got to the point where I could see, okay, how do I participate in this event or treasure hunting, and like I have 3 properties. It's like, and eventually it was like, I could either be doing this for a year and making very little headway, or I could go in deep. So I think it was August or so, about 14 months in, that I just decided, oh, heck with it. I'm just going to, grab as many good buys as I can, and just go straight up to executive, in a month. So that was pretty much my strategy. Whether, again, that's a good idea or not, no financial advice at all, other than what I would say is, I'm making headway toward becoming profitable. And the fun part is just the fun part of riding along at this point. And there's a lot less pressure now,
Yep.
this far in, because you get closer to being profitable. And then the rest is just enjoy the experience. And now Upland has shifted more for me, instead of just seeing it as an investment, more as, like I want to be in, I want to be here. I want to, interact. And it's become a lot more of a whole sphere of an experience, rather than just, like when you think of a traditional investment, you're thinking, okay, here's point A, I want to get to point B,
Yep.
and, so it's become less of an ROI thing, as opposed to kind of the whole universality of a social RI, and a communal ROI, a little bit of all kinds of ROIs playing together into, okay, maybe they somehow get interwoven and eventually intersect back into the main ROI that I'm trying to shoot for. And I don't know if I'm doing everything right. I'm sure I'm not. And Upland's great at making sure I stay humble.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I think that's true for everybody. Is you live and learn, and you kind of roll and ride along, and just continue to
Yep.
try not to be too perfect, so to speak.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you're listening on the Spotify, you started in April, and then you pretty much just cruised around, not doing much for about 4 months. And there you can clearly see in your chart that, yeah, you made the big jump there. You went from, what was it, 10 properties or 16 properties way up to 211 properties. Now, as I said, I did do a bit of snooping around before, and your main holdings are in Santa Clara. Is that like a treasure hunt map? That seems what that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started in good old Detroit, great for good old Bob, and found the industrial side of things didn't quite work well with just earning 0.01 spark per spark chest. When I saw the prize was a lot more westbound, so I was actually my first property was in Los Angeles. Then I eventually hiked over to Detroit, realizing the prices were so much cheaper for property, and then realized that was a mistake, and flew all the way back to Los Angeles. It blew a lot of travel fees to start, but then once in Los Angeles, it took me maybe another like 6 to 8 months to realize Santa Clara. I guess the size of a city makes a really big difference in terms of, I think, the amount of paper airplanes is not scaled to the size of the city. It's more based on, okay, here's the city, we're going to we're going to plot this many paper airplanes in it, regardless
Mm.
of the size.
It's like
So what
standardized.
happens is all those paper airplanes are stretched so much farther apart in Los Angeles than in
Mm.
Santa Clara, where you might your block explorer can float for or like be right next to three or four paper airplanes at once, and so that
Mm.
saves me a lot of time. Um, and so I've enjoyed treasure hunting. I use pretty much all 80 something sends every single day,
Mm.
and I still manage to yap on Discord and try to stay abreast with Upland news as much as I can. But I think my biggest pain point right now for the Upland community might be resonating with the creator side of things, which I don't participate in myself.
Yep.
But I know with some of the changes to how, and that today's announcement with the mini games, I think that's going to be interesting. But I don't know how appealing 1 million Epics prizes for making a whole game, if that's
Oh, well, maybe we can dive into that if you want, actually. We'll just kind of we can have a look
Mhm.
at that because yeah, I read that post this morning, and as somebody who has, made games as a hobby and taken part in several game jams, I was like, whoa, you're asking a lot here for okay, the reward, sure, 1 million Apex. It sounds great. It's not a lot comparative to the time you're going to put in, especially if you're working with a team. So
Sure,
that that
right.
that is what it is. But for something like this, it would be more the long tail. Like people are going to engage in the game, and there's going to be some financial aspect. That's all well and good. But what really got to me is the glaring thing that stood out is there's no specs. There's no what's the aspect ratio, what's the file size, what's the format.
Mhm.
There's no details at all.
So maybe it's all going to be open source.
I don't know. I would assume it's a HTML5. They want it like a web-based version, but is it going to be an XEE? Or I just don't know. It's very strange. And the competition starts Friday, October 13th. So it starts now. You've essentially got 2 months. 2 months.
So
It's not a
maybe
lot of time.
we'll get the details, the 1st of December on, what the
Yeah.
structure may be, and then everyone starts, trickling in their formatting from there. But it is interesting. Like you said, the prize. If you're already doing this, or it's a hobby, then
Yeah.
maybe that's rewarding. But it is great to see, though. In all fairness, you know, especially having a lot of mini games would be a pretty nice extra feature. I mean, we
Absolutely.
only had a few layer two developments really that I think have kind of stood the test of time so far, namely Upland Kingdoms and Uplandia, and maybe if there's a few that are starting to trickle in, but I think those are the ones that most folks will keep
Yeah.
repeating as means at this point. So more games
Absolutely.
are better.
Well, yeah, because you're so active in the Discords, I guess you get to see and be part of the roller coaster, all the various roller coasters that the community goes through, the FUD cycles and the hype cycles and all the rest of it. So,
Yes, it's intriguing. It seems to me that the pulse is, um, how do we not only get utility from layer two, but is it scalable long term, and is it is it worth the time
yeah.
to participate? Because again, you have so many things happening at Upland. You kind of have to pick and choose your thrills and your battles.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I think you're right. Ultimately, it's a very good thing. We want more of this. It just feels, as often some of these things do, that it's very rushed and lacking in details. Yeah.
and then the other thing too is when Upland changes anything in their API or their they do any kind of programming, then it seems like Uplandia and Upland Kingdoms are having to catch up, or any of the games having to tinker with their settings. I don't think there's any kind of we don't see in Discord any big announcement like, oh, by the way, we just made this huge change. And
No.
what also is intriguing is lately I mean, maybe this is a positive from Upland. We're not seeing many um, we're not seeing downtime very much anymore, right? Like,
Oh, maintenance
um,
periods and such. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
it used to be, I'd say half a year ago, it was like there was this time where every 3 to 7 days we'd have another maintenance happening, and there was this theme that every Spark Week they had to make sure there was a maintenance somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but but yes, I think layer two is good. I think more support for the creative side, and obviously now the requirement is going to be important, and just continuing to see Upland evolve beyond just um, continued um, linearity with the with the real estate environment. But I think that also brings me to the other theme that I really wanted to share tonight, which is I think there's still such a nostalgic need, and I don't know if there's enough focus on it, which is how do we, we're getting so much into flavor of the day. And what I mean by that is, okay, it's great that totems are around. It's great that stock car logists are around. It's great that everyone's jazzed about these new items or Tokyo. But, what's going on with Bakersfield? What's going on
Yeah.
with the I voted Block Explorer. We just voted on UIP2, and not a there wasn't even any talk about you know what happened last time with the, I think it was B or a badge, things of that sort. I think just how do we make you know the historic side of Upland relevant and valued still. It, there was not too long ago, I saw even a property on the market, or someone was trying to float how to sell one of the inaugural properties in San Francisco. And, and I think it was actually on Facebook. Someone was asking, what does it even mean?
Yeah.
And they didn't even know what it meant. And it was like, it was a rare property. And they were like, is this worth anything? And
Wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
of course it's worth something, but I guess that's subjective at this point. If folks weren't aware of what the history is,
What's
or
come before?
I,
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said that Upland, whether it's utility that drives this, or whether it's just more focus on, or like more events in some of these cities, then eventually certain areas are going to be sort of dormant. And one of the things I say on Discord is, I love Staten Island. I visited Staten Island. I'm all there, but unless there's something happening, I'm sorry, it's starting to become like Static Island. Or if you
Yeah.
look at Kansas City,
Yeah.
the next thing I'm going to say, I love Kansas City, but it's Kansas City. And then you have all these things going on in Bakersfield, it's the field of bakers, and I'm like, so I'm nervous that we're getting too um, mono city oriented, so to speak. Where
Yep.
okay, we went to London, everybody moved their. I mean, so many people moved their homes to London, then Tokyo, and then some people just burned their London bridges, so to speak, and then went to
Yep.
Tokyo, and then so I'm a little nervous. You know, it doesn't. I haven't seen much of a strategy Upland has to on that. Maybe that's a good thing, but that's just a thing that makes me nervous.
Well, there's a lot of history there. And specifically, when you mentioned Bakersfield, I know when Bakersfield first got floated as the next city release, prior to that, and at the same time as that, there has been talk about spark mining being a thing. And Upland has sold like very exclusive, very expensive Terraformer block explorers. And it was
Mhm.
always, I don't know if it was officially put forward, but it was definitely assumed in the community that these Terraformer block explorers were going to have some utility role in this whole spark mining process. And a lot of the community speculated, well, Bakersfield's probably one of those places because it's in the middle of nowhere. It has a kind of industrial vibe to it. That never came to
Sure.
fruition. So, yeah.
And so the terraformer to this day has been just the terraformer,
And they were expensive. They were bloody expensive.
Right.
Over $1 million each, I believe.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, where's the utility there? And now, how is that going to play in with this whole Sparklet proposal and go into crypto? Are they still going to proceed with Spark mining? If not, that's not a very good look. So
right.
I don't know.
And as far as mining, and that kind of brings me to the idea of I've been kind of circulating this on Discord, is maybe someday Upland will have a downland version too.
I saw you say that before, yeah.
You kind of have everything that you have to do underground goes there. So, but yes, and there's not right now. There's just not, unless we're going to get some value from the terraform. There's not a reason for me to be treasure hunting in a city with 0.01 spark, or if that translates to 10 sparklets. If I set up a meta venture, are people going to be flocking to visit that business where I could just be setting up in Tokyo where everybody is? So it's there's got to be something that gives. Otherwise, in the real world, there's migration that happens between cities, but it's not like, okay, one city rises and then everybody moves there. That doesn't really happen in real life. I don't think.
No.
Maybe in Australia that's different, but I don't. There's no city in the U.S. that's glamorous enough that just all of a sudden shines and everybody just that hasn't happened since Ellis Island and everybody moved in. But
we did have a bit of a mass exodus from the Victorian state during COVID as people bailed out of the full-on restrictions they had there. So that happened a little bit, but yeah, not to that extent. Maybe there's a key right there. You mentioned all that. Maybe that's a mini game somebody's got to put out there. Terraformer, Spark mining, tie it all in together. Maybe Upland will just push it off to the layer 2 and then dust the hands off.
That would be pretty nice. I'd be up for it.
Nice.
I won't make the game, but I'll definitely play it.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned meta ventures there. Have you got yourself involved with any meta ventures, like running them yourselves, or any of the layer 2 stuff or manufacturing or anything like that interest you?
So meta ventures has been a pipe dream that I keep saying I'm doing. There in spirit and everything else, and I just, for whatever reason, I can't find the property I really feel like I'm ready to move forward with, and then try to figure out what kind of business I really want to run. That's just been, I've been a little bit behind on that, so I'll consider that a faux pas so far. But I'm definitely curious if Tokyo 2 is going to bring a few nicer, larger, upsquared properties. I know you grabbed famously one of the I think the second or third biggest property in
second, Tokyo. I believe. Yeah. Yeah. I was lucky with that one.
How's building on that, or have you got that?
I put I forget the size. It might be a medium or a large showroom. So that's going to be the outlet for Samurai Aquatics in Japan, basically. So I've started stacking it up with decor already. So now we're just waiting for the city hall to open so I can officially apply for it and yada yada. Yeah.
How many days is it for the city hall now? Or do we know?
I don't know how long it's got till it's ready. No, I don't know. It was a massive building. So yeah, I'm not sure. I
thought I read something on Discord about that it might have been like 14 days left, and then somehow it went back up to 26.
Oh wow!
So somebody may have pulled some spark somewhere. I don't know, but yes, maybe that's going to also be a sign of the next Tokyo, but Tokyo 2. But yes, I'm interested in getting involved in that space. I also think there's going to be some shakeups in the meta venture space we're going to reach some kind of critical mass, I think, where eventually, the less successful businesses are going to have to, funnel into some other kind of property investment or gaming or layer two or what have you, which brings back the question of whether once you close the meta venture, can you sell your property, which I think is eventually going to iron itself out, which I think, you've also, we all hope will be the case at least.
Well, it's just another one of those loose ends you mentioned, isn't it, that need to be addressed.
Exactly. And that's also some of the fun I have with, I think I'm starting to become known a little bit as the feedback man.
I've written down in my notes, feedback king. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And one of the things again is I don't expect everything that is mentioned. Some of it just flows with the wind, whatever, but I think it's helpful and healthy to at least try to see things continue to progress in the metaverse. And
yep.
So as long as I say that, can go to sleep at night knowing, okay, I tried my best,
yep.
move on, go back to the real world, everything's hunky-dory, then I'm at peace with things. If I feel like if I'm not trying at least, then at least that's something that I'm like in the back of my mind, well, I could have done something a little bit better. So at least try, at least get feedback, at least bring it out. I think neighborhood ratings, as an example, is one area where I think some folks got so hung up that they've already sort of given up. And my feeling is, well, everybody has their own, view on that, but we haven't even got to round 2 yet.
We haven't even breached that, that next step. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's only been, 6 months into this? So it's there's a lot that can still be restructured. There's a lot improved. And if we read the neighborhood ratings announcement for what is written, it does say that they'll eventually look at changing some of the things from time to time.
Yep.
So it seems like it's high time to me now that there are about half a dozen, as hoods going into round 2, to start thinking about what round 2 looks like, and also going back to round 1, what can make things better, more realistic, more, and fairer. So for folks who haven't already, do check out feedback. There's quite a few interesting ones. My little tag name is not Bob. It's not Bill Murray, but we'll just say jmhigh.coupon.
Nice.
That's my little tagline there. But yes, things continue to evolve and hopefully get better. You asked also about layer 2, my involvement. I'm in Upland Kingdoms at this time, but Uplandia, I love it. I just haven't gotten into it as much as I'd like to. I think it's one of those time limit factors with treasure hunting and Upland Kingdoms, and being involved with nodes and Discord. At some point, you have to pick and choose your battles or your excitements, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you mentioned nodes there, and you're talking about neighborhood ratings. Now, you are a member of the Century City node in LA, and were you guys the second or third lot to secure the neighborhood rating collection?
So it was first Playa del Rey, and then second, I believe, was Chelsea.
That's right.
And then I think it was third or fourth. I'd have to, yes, so somewhere around there.
So can you speak about how you got involved in with that crew, and what that experience was like to go through and secure that collection, and maybe if and how you're gearing up to get ready for that next step, the node versus node battles?
So I got involved with Century City. I've been a bit in the real world in LA, and then I just kind of felt like, okay, Showtime and Fox and kind of the starry lights be a little bit of a fun spunk of energy, so to speak. So during sort of its heyday on the market, I just decided, okay, let's make a run for it. Got into it. It's a nice, fun, vibrant community. A lot of interest in building and development and engagement. So we've grown to over 90% built, and there's not a whole lot more to do there as far as Spark um, commitments and seeing how we can support each other. In fact, there's a few players get to a certain threshold in development of a neighborhood that you're wondering, well, what this one plot on the map, who is that? And so we've been doing more a game of Clue, it seems like now, than we are actually talking amongst each other. In fact, there's one of the biggest property owners for his or her personal privacy. I'll avoid even saying their in-game name here, but you know who you are, and we've been looking for you for going on over a year now. And so there's kind of a fun with that. But as far as the neighborhood ratings, again, not just to speak to Century City, but a lot of the smaller neighborhoods that have grown so much. And it goes back to what I had mentioned about the older cities, assets, and now also neighborhoods too, is that we don't know how Upland plans to support them just yet. And so when you have a city like in the real world that's fully pretty much built out, you think of Manhattan, you think of or Tokyo or Sydney, really well-built areas. They're not going to be, they're not forgotten. So supporting them in, the value proposition, especially with the hood ratings based on growth, you're supposed to show growth to be successful, is definitely a question mark. You're seeing hoods that are 80% built being the battle being won by another neighborhood that's just like 15 to 20% built.
Yeah.
Yes. So you know, so there's obviously I'm here to be happy for them too, and
yeah.
But there is definitely a fair debate and discussion to be had on, okay, well, what are we supposed to be doing? So so I think that's something in our culture in Century City is we love the camaraderie, but we're all a little bit like, come on Upland, let's get something going.
Yeah, well, it's the same in Midtown Terrace. Like Midtown Terrace and Century City are prime examples of, neighborhoods, communities that went gangbusters to support all of the building and development. I'm sure you guys and girls would have employed, whether it was the Spark Exchange or the UCC or Spark Trains and all of that sort of stuff,
Right.
Going gangbusters. And then ultimately, where we're at now, it's kind of all worked against you, where you're if Century City goes into stage 2 and you're against one of these neighborhoods that they got their collection on a 20% developed rate, well, you cannot compete. You can't. So
so if nothing else, support the feedback that
yep.
there's got to be a curve somewhere for, okay, there's growth, but something that's already, it's like you take a sprinter, you take someone who's just starting to run in the gym, and they're going to, give them 3 months, their progression is going to be so much more than, like an athlete slash sprinter. You might be able to shave off a few seconds of time with each run, but so diminishing return for the more development you have. So it's going to be interesting, and I think Upland eventually is going to see that. And I don't know what point that is, but there's an element to the level of secrecy, where well, not secrecy, but non-disclosure of how the system, how they're setting things up.
Yep.
That they're intending not to have folks be able to game the system or the rating system, but I think it's sort of drifted more toward how does it even work.
Yeah, yeah.
So it goes back to the mini games is how do you even do it? um, so just the clarity level um, is something I just kind of like being involved with in all aspects, whether that's on Discord discussion or whether that's poking around with some of the CMs to get some answers on some things, or um, you know having a little bit of a moment of satire on this or that, but maybe still making a point somewhere in all of that.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to see things evolve. I just hope my hope for my message to players is don't give up on something that doesn't seem to be working just yet.
Mm.
And that's true whether that's the neighborhood ratings, whether some folks are down about the Sparklet proposal, or there's a competition that went awry or whatever. Don't give up on that. That's part of the adventure. That's part of why, again, go-kart sushi. It doesn't have to all make sense. Just roll with it. And eventually, if you crack at it enough, you're going to start taking the pressure away. You start to make it more of an experience, a day-to-day thing. Life is not meant to be perfect. Life is not meant to win the lottery every day. I'd love to win it just once if I could. But in reality, life is more, there's a poem, 13 Ways to Look at a Blackbird. And I think that's really what, you can look at things in so many different ways, but they're all a beautiful way to see the world. And, you can't have one linear truth,
Yeah.
especially in a metaverse, because we don't even know what a metaverse is quite yet.
Yeah, it's all still playing out. Yeah.
So, so just keep an open mind, and it's the more folks who just continue to live and breathe Upland and play it for what it is, and just let it roll, give it time, and we're going to continue to see growth. That's what I think is going to happen. As long
Nice.
as folks who think that they just have to give up, just give it time, because this was not intended to be a 6-month race course.
No, yeah, absolutely not.
So, yeah.
Well, you definitely seem like somebody who's kind of has peace of mind with where you're at and what's happening in the ecosystem. How much of that's to do with like you're being able to, like we looked in your chart, getting your account to where it is now? I saw you've got over 20 Spark. Has that all been from treasure hunting, or have you purchased some of that as well?
So admittedly, it's all from treasure hunting.
Awesome.
So a huge
Yep.
investment of my time.
Yep.
Granted, I will put a PR spin on that to say that I have put in quite a huge financial investment as well into
Yep.
Upland. But that was mostly on the property side of things.
Yes.
So I do think there is whether, for each player, whether you can contribute just $5 to the game, or, you want to go all out. There's some who have done 7 figures worth or whatever, what have you. But whatever, if you can put up just even a little bit um, into Upland in addition to your time, I think there's a kind of a nice balance of energy
Yep.
and commitment that helps to kind of secure your interest, so to speak. And I think just putting in some money also made me more motivated too, obviously, as would anybody. You
Yeah.
know, if it's just your time, then eventually you start to burn out and just whatever. And so for me, I think putting that initial investment in really helped spark my interest in sparking. So yes, everything has been from treasure hunting and the little bonuses, login bonuses. I just got my first zero point 0.03 spark
Nice.
one recently, and then some of the was it the spark the treasure rushes and things. But I'm not fast. Maybe you can beat me on some competitive hunts someday in San Francisco whenever I venture over or something. But I'm not fast in the Santa Clara world. I have another nickname. I'm the Cernus Turtle.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm not definitely not the fastest over there. And so yeah, I'm the Cernus Turtle, but I'm working on upgrading my name to in fact be the Cernus Snake, the Cernus
Nice.
Cobra.
Well,
The BE I got was not the truest. It's intended to be a king cobra.
yep.
It's my favorite animal, king cobra, but it looks like they put a present on top of my
Yeah,
cobra
I
snake.
had to look at it a couple of times. I'll bring that up so we can see it. So yes, it's a flared out cobra with it did look very much like a present box on top until you work out that it's a crown. Yeah,
You can barely see the plus up there, but yes, there
yeah.
is one.
So it's your favorite animal. There must be a story there somehow. What's that all about?
I've always had a fascination with cobras, and I would never want to be near one. I don't know
Oh,
what the fascination was, but I will say one real life experience. When I was a kid, I did go to a zoo. I looked at a king cobra, and it actually went from the other end of the glass straight to me and just sort of did its little dance right in front of and the storefront of the glass,
oh, it's your
right to
spirit
me. Like
animal.
yeah, it wasn't like I was angled in a certain way to be like, oh, over here. No, it just came right to me, and I was just the most otherworldly way of communicating without even saying anything. I don't know, and I also think Cobras just look really cool. We got sort of just a different kind of thing going. So King Cobra it is, and I guess for some reason I got a present on top.
Nice. Well, that's a good segue over. Now, you've got 5 totems, so you're obviously taking a bit of a gamble there. Do we know, is there a snake totem on the way? It'd have to be, wouldn't there?
Speculation is
I
always the
don't
king. King
I don't know.
Cobra.
I'd have to have a look at some of the imagery they've put out there with like the stem tree that Gaia and Miles are standing in front of. Yeah, I'm not sure. So would
This
you'd be
tree
all
is
over that,
hidden
wouldn't you?
on a serpent somewhere.
It'd have to be, surely. Yes.
I definitely would hope so. My goal is to get to 10 totems by the end of the 5 chapters.
Mm.
So I'm halfway there. So it would be nice to take a breather for a chapter or two and then get in deep dive into snakes.
Did you get those 5? Were you blessed by the RNG gods, or did you pick them up on the secondary?
So I got lucky with the registration for each of them, pretty much. Three out of the 2 chapters and 3 out of 4 of the registration, 2 of the epics and 1 of the USD I was able
Very
to get
lucky.
in. But I pretty much sold all of those
Oh,
just to
really?
get a little bit. Yeah, I cashed some of that to continue to work on the whole investment piece, and
Yep.
then just got back in one with the Epics and paid like 3 times, 4 times more of the Epics markup just buying into them. So whether that was the right move or not, I don't know, but at least I got some USD out of that too, kind of
Yep.
trying to balance a little bit. And It's great to be able to put in 55K UPIX and then turn that into 60, 70, dollars USD.
Yep.
That's kind of sometimes a rarity. Sometimes even URs these days you can get even big ones can sometimes even be under a mint.
Yeah.
That's been fun. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this all heads. Do you have any big planned speculations or zoo meta ventures ahead?
No, I've slapped myself in the face a couple of times, like almost FOMOing into purchases because I'm always checking the buy, sell, trade assets channel and Upland channel, and there's always a couple of good deals there. And I like about to send a DM, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" I've said ad nauseum, no, I don't plan to do anything with STEM or like as far as manufacturing goes. It'd be nice to be able to, assuming it's going to work like Spark, where you can stake it on other people's stuff and that. It'd be nice to be part of that. But yeah, I've just been trying to go with the flow basically, and yeah, I've been stung badly by the FOMO dragon in the past, and I'm just really trying not to get back on that again. So yeah.
What's interesting too is I think Abdullah, I think he only has like last I checked was just like one or two totems or totem passes. So I don't know if he's sort of FOMO'd out himself or if he's focused more on the property side of things, or if he's going to do one big shake up at the end.
Man, an account of that size could roll through the MetaVentures and just slurp up all of the totems, and it's all for free based on his dividends. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's even possible to manage that much Spark and that many properties, and yeah, I'm still trying to actively reduce my property count because again, it's one of those you talk about. Go back and tie up loose ends. Well, where's the property management tools? You try and do a property swap now, and I got to scroll through 3,500 properties. It ain't fun, especially not on mobile.
Right. Yeah. And I've always felt like I don't want to go over 200 properties. That's been sort of my thing is I struggle enough to manage more than 50 to 100 at a time.
Yep.
Where and actually put a unit of mental energy into it. Like, okay, well, I'm actually wanting to sell this. Okay, let me see what the right price point is. Is this the right time? Do I want to use it for treasure hunting? Do I want to use it for a game? To put that much analysis into it. If I had as many properties as you, I would just be like, let's the heck with it. We have this block of 15 properties. Let's do something with these. Shake them up or whatever. But yeah, I think it's tough to manage. But you get a lot of visits, I'm sure, with that many.
Yeah, that's definitely that's a big part of the residual income or whatever you want to say. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's a lot to manage. And I think I went from 7,000 to now I'm down to 3,500 or something like that. Yeah. So I'm still trying to get a few more out of there. Looks like I've just lost you there for a second. Sorry, mate, you back? Or we just froze up there for a second.
Can you see me?
Yeah, cool. All good.
Yeah. How many do you get an overload of emails and DMs and for one little property to trade or
No, it's actually the opposite. I get a lot of offers without a DM, and if I get an offer with no DM, I just reject it immediately. There's been a few times where I've gotten an offer, rejected it, and then I've looked at it later and gone, actually, that was way in my favor. I should have accepted it. But just as a general principle, because I don't want to stooge myself, and if you're getting so many offers, it's very rare that you get an offer that's in your favor that doesn't come with a DM. So
that's interesting. That's a very good word of wisdom for the traders out there. So
yeah, we haven't seen it for a while. Remember, I'm sure you would have been around. Was it Captain somebody? Captain, and that was his whole thing. He'd put out 500 really crappy offers, and he was pulling out the USD.
A wave of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen one of those characters around.
I would be inclined to think that's semi-alcatrazzian, to, I don't know, kind of start to semi asset funnel in a way, could be a
Well,
view on
he
doing that
just
too much.
destroyed his
But
name in the community, is what happened. And then there was a widespread community
that too.
backlash. So, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Like you say, you're only focusing on a limited amount of properties. Now, are you actively trying to? I know when I was in the early days, I was actively trying to buy, flip to upscale my San Francisco financial district set properties. I see you've got a
Mhm.
really good collection set in Los Feliz in LA, the Rare Collection. You've got a very good set in Jingamai, Bel Air. Is that like the
Mhm.
cornerstone of your dividends and you're trying to work on those collection properties?
So my thinking is, as I continue to sort of trickle out some USD, is keep the dividends really high.
Yep.
Um, if there's a good epics to USD ratio to where it might make sense to um, liquidate some of the larger dividend properties, then I'll look at that, but that's not my main priority.
Yep.
My thinking is to try to extract as much value out of those. Some of them I even use in like Upland Kingdoms with Bel Air, for example. Try to extract as much value out of those, and then eventually flip them. If the USD is good, then USD. If not, for epics. Um, but lately, there's been a lot of sales. In fact, I sold my biggest. I had Parkwoods in Nashville, and
Mm.
they were when Jingame in Tokyo, is still being minted out, an exclusive collection. When that hit, and you get 2.05x, a yield booster there, it doesn't make sense to have a purple, a limited collection, big properties where you're holding all this epics. I'd rather. So I joined this mini movement that was going on where there were some epics percentages as low as, I want to say, 69%
Yeah. Wow.
UPIX
Mm.
for parkboards, for like almost million UPIX ones. I didn't go that low, but I sold mine for about like 85, 83%
Yep.
UPIX. But then I just moved that all over to Jiname, and by minting them, I actually get better return on investment losing all that markup on the non-flip
Yep.
into doubly flip yielding in Jingle. So, again, everything doesn't run a super logical course. I've tried to focus on some of that, and then lately I've actually been scooping up a lot of Detroit, which I've been using that to not to increase my property holdings, but there's a funny enough, if anyone tunes into this and has not joined Upland yet, you should really check out joining Upland, in my opinion, not financial advice, but to consider Womplay. They have sometimes some rewards based on buying properties.
Mm.
So each property count you helps you to accrue actual EOS. You can then, of course, transfer into USD. And Detroit's a great market to be buying a bunch of properties really cheap and still getting. So I found some other ways to, you know, what is it? Multiple paths of residual earnings, or so to speak, or multiple income flows.
Yep.
So that's kind of fun. And so, but yes, most of my strategy is around. I think holding collection is going to be more uh, valuable long term than getting into just having a bunch of properties.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the same.
Eventually, yes, eventually non-collection properties, unless Upland figures out a way to make each one valuable. I think that might be more of a long-term vision.
Yep.
I think collection properties, well, at least I can live with those, and and be able to pick and choose. And I can take a Jingame and then you can turn that into a totem. You take a jingame and then um, some of the older, what we're seeing is the older cities have very high markups. But if I were to negotiate with a player who has another exclusive collection that's yielding the same, but just happen to be an older city that the markup is really high, he or she might want to get that jingame just because so many more people are visiting that area. Number one, it's a tier one. Number two, and so there's a lot more negotiating power if you have collections, I think, than just like a 1 million UPEX, Joe Boonesville Road properties, so I've gravitated toward finding properties that are interesting, and that I think will retain value long term. I have been thinking more about trying to do a little bit of the new city, build your big empire quickly thing, and then the next time the next city comes, sell a bunch of that, get to the next city, and just try to capture as many quick visits as possible. There's kind of a wave of that. Like if you see the top 20 visit leaderboard, you'll see all the whales like Abdullah team. You might even be in there, and then you'll see this subset of folks who are just pros or directors going way up there because they just shot a bunch of properties in these new markets where everybody's visiting right now.
Yep.
And so if you consider visits as yield, and if you take the stats on that, you can actually see that the way they're doing that with the visits is a better yield than sometimes even ultra rare properties.
Yeah.
So there's that, but that's only short lived.
Yeah.
As soon as there's an expansion or another city, so I'm starting to lean in that direction at times. But like with everything, there's a lot of thought process, and I'm glad I have less than 200 properties still.
Yeah, well, it's that kind of take a short-term loss for a longer-term gain. That's something I definitely employed back in San Francisco days, like in and out of Richmond. There was a lot of properties there around the 2-3K mark. I gobbled up hundreds and hundreds of those and sold those under mint back when there was no threat of Alcatraz for devaluing properties, and piled that into like the rare set in San Francisco. So yeah, that's definitely a valid strategy. With that whole going to the new city kind of situation that you mentioned, are you somebody that kind of dives into the vanilla collection speculation? Do you avoid that purposely, or do you dive into it?
Not a whole lot, and I feel that's kind of unfortunate. I am one who would subscribe to. I would love to see another full city release again.
Yeah, me too.
I think just this. Okay, here's it's going to be Tokyo 1, Tokyo 2, Tokyo 3, Tokyo 4. I'm not one who likes, if we put this into real world concept, I'm not one who likes to watch 5 sequels of a movie. They get worse and worse every single time.
Yes.
It's always the original, that's the classic. And so for me, I'd love to see a full city release. I don't care if it's only 25% minted to start.
Yeah.
I would much prefer that and some more organic minting than just, okay, let's just, boom, 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 and we got organic for 4% of the city. So to speak. So I do think speculating on such a small area when the first 2 minutes, pretty much everything's gone, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In fact, when we were in London, I think one of the properties I had, it was actually in St. James, and you purchased it from me within like the first 5 minutes, I think, of the release.
Can't have been me, because I did nothing. Was it?
Yeah, you purchased one of my properties, and it was in St. James, and it was about 110K UPEX or so. and it was near one of the theaters. And I just was like, you know what? All I'm gonna do here in London, I'm just gonna buy as quickly as possible whatever I can get. And I'm just gonna flip them for anything I can get. Actually, the first one I bought was it was a theater
Mm.
before this other one, and I bought it for 95K. I flipped it for about 350K within maybe the first 2 minutes of the release.
That's nice. Yeah.
And yeah, so I think I did not do any research. I think just looking at the lay of the map and any marked properties and just trying to get the smallest properties you can find.
Yep.
Granted, unless you're going to make a meta venture, then you try to find the biggest.
The biggest ones. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that's been more the strategy. I think the whole speculating game is has become unfortunately a little bit devalued. And I think even, and I don't want to call them out here, but I think that some of the folks who are driving some of the research are even frustrated, into where the best areas are because there's not as much play in that anymore with such a small release. And I think even those most speculated areas are even more the ones that are going to be gone within the first minute or so.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see that. That would be my pitch to Upland. Let's have a full release. I think Upland shouldn't worry as heavily about supply as they think they need to. Um, because I think there's already enough supply that adding one city as a full city release is not going to drastically change the fact that there's already a supply and demand balance where it is. There's enough cities where one city is not going to drastically change
Yeah.
things as it.
Yeah, I'd like. I mean, I'm the old classic old man sitting on the couch saying, "Oh, the good old days." I remember that when we used to get we're going to release Oakland, and these are the collections, and the property lines are up, and you can see the mint prices, and you can plan ahead and all that sort of stuff. I'd love to see us go back to that. If they have to make it so that the city, well, I would love it so there's always an option for us to be able to work towards. So whether it be a rare collection, make the prices crazy high, make it crazy high, and but then I guess you're always at risk of somebody with a very big account just coming in and gobbling the whole thing up too. So it's kind of tricky, but I feel a bit sorry for the newer players who don't have the same opportunities that myself and other players had in the past, where you could sit and work and plan to upgrade these collections for weeks and months and strategize, and it was always left there unminted. So, yeah.
I still subscribe to some of the older stuff. My first city release was actually Porto. So I never really got to experience a full city release because even Porto was originally advertised as being like a 1, 2, like a very small, and then it grew and grew, and folks were surprised by that. So it was advertised more as a small city.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was just as far as planning is concerned, I think it is a challenge for new players. I think there's the other piece of the FSA agent thing.
Yep.
I'm really not a fan of that. I think especially in releases, it invites a lot of questionable moves. But I have subscribed to. I've seen enough information from Upland leadership that temp swapping is still okay. It's just not that frequently discussed or done. And so I have done a bit of that, and that's also helped me grow a bit. So I'm trying to still be able to feel like I'm an oldie, even though I'm only 18 months in. There's a lot of things that got missed, and I would have loved to have seen a full city release, especially Los Angeles or San Francisco even. Was San Francisco how did that work? I mean, obviously you had the inaugural properties, but it wasn't like a full release session, right? It's more let's
Yep.
pick and choose how this is all going to grow into the city,
Well,
or
originally San Francisco, of course, was the only city available, and like for the like people refer to me as an OG, but I say I'm at best I'm a pseudo OG because the OGs that I feel are the ones who were involved in 2019, where there was no block explorers, there was no minting. I think it was like you sent Dirk and Edan an email, and here's your budget, and then they would mint the properties. I'm not exactly sure how it worked. When I come along in January 2020, San
Mhm.
Francisco, all of the properties were open and available for minting. There was ultra rares, there was all the exclusives. There's just I don't know the number, of course, but for shits and giggles, let's say 90% of the city was unminted. There was no
Hmm.
property management websites. There was nothing. And this was part of the
Interesting.
fun. I would sit there with my
Hmm.
pen and paper and I would spend
Right.
hours every night scrolling the map property by property, clicking on it. Oh, this one's a bit smaller than that one. Oh, this one's 2,000. Okay, I'll write that down. 2,000 the address. Oh, this one over here looks a little bit smaller. 1,400. Sweet. So, you know, yeah.
It was more of an appreciation of each property, and like it had its own life of its own. Where now it's much more of a technical science of okay, let's check up with plan.me or let's check one of the other data mining tools and find out okay, this markup is this and this one is that,
Yeah.
so I think I can flip or yield or. So I do think there's an art to that. In fact, I think there's even a base of players now who specifically try to avoid property trading as much because
Yep.
they like the artistic side of being able to flip Block Explorer or legit or something where the value isn't quite as defined.
Yep.
Because I think they can get better flips that way, where if someone, maybe 800K to buy a golden totem makes sense to somebody. But, if there was a market that technically explained what the, market value is, then maybe you would not spend 800K on it. So I think there's a lot more breathing room to, make a crazy sale, so to speak, that
Yep.
you don't get now that you did get if you joined back in 2019, 2020, if that's
Yeah.
a fair.
Well, I don't know. What was your whole take on Upland's put the figure out that there's 3 million accounts, individual accounts, but of
Sure.
those 3 million accounts, there's 300,000 landowners, unique
Uh-huh.
landowners. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
so how does there must be an
Oh,
awful lot of people that are only buying block explorers? I mean,
well, I guess I'm a big fan if there's so many fans that we apparently have in the stadiums watching
the
the
lurkers.
landowners.
Yeah, yeah.
There should be one big, here's the Upland Metaverse. There should be a huge stadium built for the whole world
Yeah.
to put the other two,
2.7 mil. Yeah.
270,000, whatever, or just, yeah, 209, 200, whatever.
2.7 million. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about, I think there was an explanation given recently that, and then the other piece, I think if you were a visitor, but then you lost the property after not reaching the level, then you don't, maybe you're not considered a landowner at that point, but you
Well,
were, but
you're spinning the numbers then, aren't you? You're putting some magical spin on that to put that number out there. Yeah.
yeah, but maybe it's good for Upland to be able to advertise the 3 million, use it as leverage for certain meetings, and then
Yep.
where they need to focus more on the active users, then they put that number aside, and then they. So I think it's kind of an advertising, just like you said, spinning the
Yep.
magic sauce is spinning, of sorts. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just it's interesting, and then you also have just you have different groups. You have the Discord groups. You have the general. If you go on the general, there's usually like 5 to 10 names that are always trickling in, and then you have some who are, a little bit more on the sides, and but there's a spot for everybody. I just think, with that 3,300,000 and all the other numbers, it's great to see that they're, at least in the most recent, like UIP and some in the Sparklet proposal and some of the other things. It seems like there's a little bit more clarity on what some of those numbers are. Because I know there's certain players who have even come to me and asked, what does this even mean with some of these numbers? And now it's being answered in some of these, what the population numbers are. So I think that's great to see. I'd love to see Upland continue to release more clarity. The data point I'm really interested in seeing, we were talking about city releases. I really want to see what new player acquisition is like per new city.
Yep.
So especially when we're talking about international cities, are we really reaching, folks in Tokyo in real life? Are we really reaching, Brazilian market when we go to Brazil? There was a comment made by X1 that city releases are not really designed to bring in new players to start.
Yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once they're formed in that city, then most of the marketing happens to bring them in. But then the problem is if you have a small city release and it's pretty much fully minted, how do you then create that interest if they're, the minting, the aspect of, and then the Tokyo city release was, like with the UDU podcast, where it was like at such odd hours of the morning for you. It's the same with the Tokyo release. It wasn't.
It was 2 or 3 a.m. Tokyo time or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on the marketing. I'm also would love to have some kind of face put to Ms. Lindsay, what's her name? Lindsay Ann Armott or something. She's the director of marketing for Upland. I have never seen her in any parts so far, and I'd love to hear her voice somewhere. It was great to see in the Sparklet proposal. I got to meet Danny Brown, I believe it is.
Yeah,
Chief
Danny
of Staff.
Wolf Brown. Yep.
I was. It was pleasing to see another voice. I think Upland needs some new energy in addition to Dirk and Idan always being the face of Upland. I think having some extra voices helps put some new perspective, because Upland, Metaverse, we talked about how it's a lot of different views and dynamics. So I think having another voice is great. My hope is that maybe Lindsay might bring to the forefront how, we just get these city releases and then there's really no details on, did we bring a lot of players in? What, I don't even know what's being advertised right now in Japan. I just don't. So,
yeah.
I would love to have a little bit of clarity. I don't need to have, it's kind of like the neighborhood ratings. I don't need to know how the exact calculation will happen, but at least give me a conceptual understanding. Okay, this is what we're doing in Japan, generally speaking. Here's some things that are working. Here's some things we're looking at. That's it. Just a little bird's eye view. Same thing with the neighborhood ratings. I don't need to know why exactly you calculate that 80% buildings gives you this much spark, and then this is how much we weight this and that. I don't need to know that exact, but at least conceptually help me understand how this starts to make sense. Why you would generally have these type performers performing at this level or flatlining or seeing this astronomical growth on the leaderboard. So the more clarity Upland continues to provide, the better. I think that's, again, going back to where I bring the feedback in, where I love to communicate, and I find it's a fun chess game that whether you win or lose, you just have fun with it and you make it your own.
You're along for the ride. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I guess it does seem like the city releases and all of this stuff, you're just selling to the existing community. So hopefully, like one of the things we've talked about as far as like leading up to the Spark proposal vote was, okay, yeah, sure, there's some scary aspects of this. And you were somebody who was kind of riding both sides. You were kind of open to both sides, but leaning
Sure.
towards it being positive.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest take was, if we're going to get any sort of mainstream attention, adoption, or whatever, perhaps this is the thing that's going to push us into the limelight. So maybe that's what was needed. How are you feeling now that we've had the yes vote come through? How are you feeling all about all that,
Mm-hmm.
and where you think it's all headed? Because it seems like you mentioned Brave and Wombat, so it seems like you're somebody
Sure.
that comes from the crypto
Mm-hmm. The
space.
crypto space, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's on. Here's the thing. I think on the face of it, it's a good proposal, generally speaking.
Mm.
I'm more nervous with the DNA and MO of Upland to maybe execute not quite the right way. That's more my concern. That yes, on the face of it, it looks good. Can they execute to match the face of that? That's where, you can make such a pretty proposal, but unless you live up to and breathe it the right way, then it's just, so this we've gotten through the little wedding dance, so to speak. Now the real nuts and bolts and details and strategies that really are going to make or break this.
Yep.
That's my view of this. So getting past the UIP is like just 5% of this marriage. It's
Yep.
really the whole, and then the other piece is there's going to be a lot of external factors that Upland may or may not be able to control with this too. They could be planning all this, and then regulation comes in and changes the whole strategy aspect. And then it's a question: do they have the funding to continue to navigate lots of directional changes, strategies? So I feel like my vote, or the vote for everybody, that is, um, it's only going to matter if it's done right at the
Yeah.
end of the day. And it's no longer about the vision. And this is only whether it's going to work. We can if the vision's great but it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And we could get another FTX kind of situation that's not even connected to
Right.
it, but can just be completely
Right.
decimated. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do think it's great. It's a good idea. It does allow more opportunities for the USD out game, or whether it's um, builders who need more spark, who might be able to get that, or maybe even arbitrage of some sort. But it will be interesting, and I think one of the keys, maybe the biggest one, is again that marketing space is being on a more mainstream chain. Uh, so we shall see. And then gas fees could be one more thing that just is a wrinkle that we just don't know, right? So
Yep.
there's too many moving parts. It's not a uh, in some of the work I've done, we've been involved with like Lean Six Sigma projects. It's not one where you have just 10 variables, get those right, and you're done. This one, there's it could be like 100 variables. If you get 99 right, but there's still one that's super important, it's
Yeah.
just screw up everything. It's much bigger than just a chessboard with 64 squares. This one has, like you could have 250 and you make all the right moves, and just one you totally screw up. But if that's the FTX one, it doesn't matter about everything else. You can do everything else right. So
Yeah. We've booked our ticket for the ride. We're not sure where we're going or where it's headed or how we're going to get there, but we've at least booked the ticket. Absolutely. Now, you've got a healthy spark balance yourself. You looking to take any of that out? Looking to get more through the Sparklet pipeline?
mm-hmm. I might just dabble for fun with taking a couple out, but
Same.
I don't think I'm definitely not going to be one trying to just take it all out.
Thanks for that. See ya. Yeah.
Bye-bye. I'm sparked out. No, I'm definitely looking to hold mostly. And if there's a good price point opportunity, I might even buy some.
Yep. Same.
But really, to me, and I mentioned this on the Reddit, to me, it doesn't matter as much. This is a good segue into what, yes, it's good market. Yes, it's a good pathway to circulation and being able to get them. But at the end of the day, we need to get back to what is Spark for. It's for utility. And as much as I love that Dirk and Don keep saying that look at all the utility with buildings, because you can get meta ventures, you can use it as a home address, neighborhood ratings, and so on and so forth. There are about 80 to 90% of structures that really, realistically, whether it's the player who can't build or isn't ready for a meta venture or doesn't want to, or doesn't have enough spark or whatever, there's a very, meta ventures are a small subset of the overall population of land in Upland. Neighborhood ratings, there's only so many hoods that are really competing. There's about 90% of hoods that are just hoods.
Don't, yeah.
So that means those properties don't really have value. What happens to the ones, and you can only set one home address. So when you put all this together, you have this matrix of conditions where you can be relevant. But if you actually look at that, that's a very small segment of the overall land. About 80 to 90% of the land, if I have I love Van Nice, if I'm saying that right. You're nice. NUYS. But if you have a random little 50 up squared prop there that you put a small townhouse in the middle of Van Nice, and and let's say you're not even in LA, where at least you can do Upland Kingdoms. What's the value of it? So there's really, you have 89% of buildings that just sit there. And so that's my biggest concern with whether Sparklet is going to be valued. I think the Spark Exchange tells you a lot about the true value of Spark and sparking. And so I would really love to see, as much as I'm talking on this interview about adding more features and kind of this whole ride and experience, I really think it needs to get back to the property focus, real estate focus. And again, going back to older cities, the only way you're going to do that is start providing more utilities for some of these things. So if we're going to get there, then there's got to be a property trading and search bar somewhere in there. There's got to be you've got to start focusing on more fundamentals of why we build, whether that's living units or providing the other one that's often circulated is a yield boost on properties with structures, which the Sparklet proposal gave some hope to that.
For collection properties. Yeah.
Yep. So
then if you've got 25 properties in a particular collection, is it only going to be the 3 that have activated the collection that are part of it? Who knows? Yeah.
and so against that clarity that drives speculation, but then if you have too much that's vague, you start to disenfranchise some people.
Yeah.
Some players. So it's a balancing act. But I think ultimately it's going to be that's where that execution of the Sparklet proposal is going to be about, not the Sparklet itself, but executing where utility actually is an output.
I'm working on a video that'll come out in the next day or two. Then it's all about, the title's going to be utility versus volatility. It's exactly that battle. Who will win? So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and volatility to me makes me think of the hype and the flavor of the day stuff, and then
Yep.
utility is the stuff that
The
sticks with the
foundations.
test of time.
Yeah.
So definitely a point to think of, because I think if you think about it, the vast majority of players, whether they plan to or not, are really here for the long haul.
Yeah.
So you have to plan not just for the volatility stuff. You really, if you want to be balanced in Upland, then you do a little bit of, picking and choosing battles, but doing some things smart too. So
Absolutely.
it's a brave new world for sure with Sparklet.
All right. Well, there's two more points I've got on my list as we're starting to wind down. The first one is I did see you've got a balance there that's just under 1 million UpX sitting there burning in a hole in your pockets. Saving up for anything? What are you planning on doing?
So I did mention I sold some Parkwoods, and that helped me quickly get some liquidity earlier. I used that hoping that Tokyo 2 might come out so I could try that mini game, if you will, of getting a bunch of visits on some podunk small properties. But since that hasn't happened, I gave up on that and I just bought a Jingame. Or as in Discord, they call it Jumanji. So I bought one of those, and I'm leaning toward either buying one of those, but I really want to get that MetaVenture property. And so I'm torn on whether to buy one in LA, or I wait for a city release, or and then there's the question of how much do you hold for totems, because it's like every 3 to 4 weeks that we're getting a new release, or even less, I think, like 2 to 3
Yeah,
weeks.
well, this has been interesting. This one, they announced it, but then no details for where the sale is. I'm like, just give us the details. Yeah. I just got completely caught with my pants down with my USD balance because I had a balance there, and it's one of those things, because you can't withdraw partial balance, you got to take the whole lot out. So I took out the entire lot, and then we had that stock car pro pass sale come up. I was like,
So, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, and I played that a little bit, not so much the USD side, but the UpX side. Right before the release of Tokyo, I bought and I regret it to this day, a 1 million UpX Bel Air property. And then thinking that the announcement was probably about 3 to 4 weeks away, so I could build up some liquidity. And then it's like maybe just 2-3 days later that I got the announcement.
It's always the way.
You live and roll with this stuff. And so I tried to. I had about a 1.5 million UpX balance earlier or actually it was close to 2 million just about a week or two ago, and I just took it into Jingame. But I decided not to get the biggest one, just to hold a balance for a reserve for totems and Tokyo 2 possibly coming,
and who knows what else is, who's what else.
But I haven't gotten into the car space much, like the stock car for legits and stuff. It's kind of one of those things with my time, like with the racing. I love the idea of racing, but if the competitions are, do it as many times as you can to post your highest score, then
it's just an RNG
you wonder
battle.
if your time is really worth doing that. If you're going to have to do it like 200 to 500 times to like max out your score, that's like, I don't know. So I've been struggling on that piece, and then the continued devaluation of cars with all these different series, and again going back to utility of okay, are we going to get transportation and how that all plays in. But it does seem like they're headed somewhere, especially with the park proposal, somehow bringing gas somewhere in the mix there. Again, this all comes down to execution. How are they going to put value into Spark? And if they I just hope that the reaction Upland leadership does is, like, if the Spark value starts to go down, it's not to try to just restrict Spark.
Well, they can't. They're going to be chasing their tail.
But what I'm saying is, let's say the spark value starts to go down, what I've seen a lot is that then they'll go, okay, let's consider nerfing treasure hunting. Let's consider, reducing the amount of spark weeks. Let's do all these things to restrict it,
Yes.
rather than actually solving the true authentic issue is find value to it, bring
Yeah.
more value to it. And I don't think there haven't been that much focus on that, because they keep focusing on, well, we have utility already because we have the meta ventures and these things, but I don't think they're seeing that still, again, 80 to 90% of structures just sit there still. So, and so the same thing goes with cars. If they can add value to, transportation, add value to the things, they can focus on the value proposition, then the spark price point and proposition is going to take care of itself. If they focus more on supply and demand restricting and cutting and burning, or whatever mechanisms they have just to focus on economic flows of the sparklet stuff, I think that they're going to get too much into the PhD braining side of things, and they're going to lose focus of the actual mechanics and the pragmatic value that's under the true foundation of these products. So that's going to be the big test of time.
Absolutely. And like, especially you're somebody who's put out plenty of feedback that I think you're good at. Like I said, you're very active in the community, so you get a lot of the angles, and you seem to kind of digest that and put that in your feedback. And there's plenty of feedback out there to consider. So hopefully they take that on board. One last thing to touch on, I guess. Maybe you got to get in your snake costume and put your magical present on your head, and if you could wave your magical wand, or you're a snake, say, I don't know how you're going to hold it, but however you're going to manage it, if you could wave your wand, and if you could change or add one thing to Upland, what would it be? Yeah.
I
Throw that at you
probably
from out of
named
the blue.
101 Dalmatians already worth of things.
Yeah.
I would really start with going to building and property utility. If
Yep.
we can just focus on that, because that's really the core fundamental foundation of the game.
Give people
If we
more
focus
reasons.
back on that, it seems like the last year and a half, the focus has been openly admitted, even by X1 on YouTube, that he posted about a response to a response video.
Yes. From
Yeah,
Mark
so he
Ferguson.
mentioned in that video that where one of the YouTube creators was talking about why they're not continuing to spend money, is one of the things where they went into the direction of, instead of focusing on properties, let's focus on building all this infrastructure for like layer 2 games and such. So if they focus more on property, then and then because Spark is really mostly tied to moving things, building things. If they focus on that, then much of the economy will be taken care of itself. I feel like Spark is kind of like the heart of Upland, and the
Good way to
buildings are
look at it.
almost more like the skin, and building things are like the hairs, if you will. And if you're not working on the heart fundamentally, then you're missing out on. You can't just restrict and it's like blood pressure. You can't just restrict and hold your breath or something. You actually have to fundamentally
Hope
change
for the
things.
best. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not about circulation. It's more about actual like fundamental lifestyle changes. So that would be my key takeaway: is focus on property, building utility, get back to the fundamentals, help cities that are, we're wondering what can we do with them, what can we do with the structures, figure out a way to make that small townhouse in the middle of Bakersfield relevant. And it's not just, okay, the excuse of I can make a place for a home address, which I can barely do anything with a home address in a city like that. I can't do any neighborhood voting currently. Just get back to that, and about, I would say, 70% of the economy gets taken care of just in doing that. So.
Yep. Well, you signed me up, mate, and I think that's a good point to end up on. Really appreciate your time. It's been a good chat and great to get to know you better. You're all over the Discord, CernS4, of course. Is there any way people can reach you outside of that? Are you on the Twitter or anything else?
Sure, I do have a CernS X account, so you can hunt me down there. In game, available. I try to be pretty wide open on the different spaces, and then Facebook. I just got promoted to being a mod on
awesome.
the Upland Me player Discord. I got my eyes peeled on
Nice.
y'all over there. So feel free to reach me anywhere, and live the dream together.
All right, mate. Thank you very much. Stick around. I've got a few things to touch with you on the back end. And thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. If you have an Upland NFT or Metaverse product, service, or event to promote, or you're just someone engaged in Web3 who'd like to have a chat, send me, Ben68, a DM on Discord, or drop a YouTube comment to discuss and secure your spot. This Metatainment production is brought to you today by the Samurai Aquatics and Decor Metaventure. Scan that QR code or click that link in the description and dive yourself headfirst into the Samurai Aquatics Discord server to pleasure your peepers on our current and future range of outdoor decor.